Good morning and or good afternoon or whenever you see this. So next episode of Karmic. And do you know what? Today, I'm going to take some time about a topic which is quite close to my heart, about people who international medical graduates, what their status is, because we're in an environment right now in the world, especially in the UK, where people are very publicly talking about the fact that they don't need international medical graduates, or we shouldn't have them, or everybody else should be prioritized, and what is the point of them, etc. And the rhetoric which is fueled by politicians always have a bearing. So you don't belong here, etc., etc. I always look at the views of some local graduates who are non-white with a bit of interest because. I think probably, uh, I think that people are sometimes safe in the belief that if you're local graduates, you will not necessarily get the abuse from racists if you're non-white. No, you still will be told you don't belong. But that's a side story. Anyway, today on this podcast, I just wanted to go through two things, right? One to start up with is the recently published General Medical Council Workforce Report. And I think it is incredibly important that we just go through it, a few things, and because of what it shows, right? It's not my opinion, that's what it is there. And I also probably ask some questions as to what the impact of all of this has. Don't get me wrong, by all means, we should look at prioritizing local graduates and everything, but just to bear in mind some facts and figures before we make the plans accordingly. So let's actually, I'm going to start by acknowledging two people whose words and some of their help with this one and what they put in the public domain. One is Sharandeep Singh, and the other one is Tanveer Alam, both of whom have mentioned a few things around this. So I'm going to use some of their bits as well, which I think are quite important and I think helped me as well. So to take it forward. Let's start with the General Medical Council report. So if you haven't seen it, have a look. It's called the State of Medical Education and Practice in the UK Workforce Report. All right, so we start off and there's a foreword around the global talent and what's happening. So just to give you an idea of what is happening, it looks like international recruitment is slowing. Jobs are harder to find for internationally qualified doctors, which is what I suppose people did want to begin with. And, the approximately between 2020 and 2024, approximately 10,000 international medical graduate doctors were on the medical register, but left it without ever having a designated body, which is an employer's. Many of these doctors will have undertaken the PLAB route, and which obviously generates fees for the General Medical Council, but did not result in any employment. Also, international medical doctors who had worked as a doctor in the UK also left in higher numbers, increasing 26% of the number of IMG doctors leaving the UK despite having a job. So, uh, the purpose that lots of people have had, first of all, to say we don't need any doctors from the outside the country. Well, congratulations. It looks like international medical doctors are leaving, so which is good, I suppose, from your point of view. We don't need any of them. Um, so there's that. That's the key issue to start with. As I said, increase in non-UK graduate doctors relinquishing a license. Um, and the GMC makes a point that the UK qualified doctors continue to have far higher rates of being accepted into a training program. But as I understand, because of the competition, local graduates would not want any international medical graduates, doctors, to compete with them unless the grandfather clause and all that sort of stuff, which is okay. It is what it is. So I think if you go down further in the report, I think the important bits of the postgraduate training becoming increasingly competitive. I think even if all the IMGs tomorrow left or were barred from applying for this post, it's not like all local graduates will get exactly what they want. So there is that sort of balance that needs to go. But interestingly, I think that the fact that I found incredibly interesting was the growing reliance on non-training doctors in locally employed roles. So doctors who are not GPs, not specialists, not in training, they're called locally employed doctors, fastest growing workforce. Um, 91% of these locally employed contracts are non-permanent. Okay, so they're bank, fixed term, locum posts. Um, in England and Wales, 58% of this group of doctors are workers locally employed. Emergency medicine showing the strongest dependence. Roles are disproportionately filled by international graduates. Maybe that's why the Royal College of Emergency Medicine has been pushing for more other professionals doing the doctor's job. So if you can't find local graduates, fill it with somebody who's local. So again, no criticism, but that's probably what it is. And that's where we are. But I just wanted to pause at this point and draw your attention to a recent BMJ report. So bear in mind what I just said about locally employed doctors, propping up departments, propping up the NHS, a parallel workforce. So I just wanted to draw your attention to a BMJ investigation that's come out, and hats off to Emma Wilkinson, Ristio Boychev, and Abby Rimmer, all of whom have penned the article. Please do have a read. It was published on the 19th of November, 2025, so quite recent. And what is the state of locally employed doctors? So contracts without guarantees on pay, hours, teaching, supervision, contracts being terminated without much rhyme or reason or discussion. It's an absolute sham, which is going on, to put it very mildly. So you have a lot of these international medical doctors giving their PLAB exams, coming to this country, having contracts which are not really contracts, so to speak, but it's a growing shadow workforce. The vast majority of UK acute trusts now use locally employed contracts. And according to the BMJ, of 179 trusts, 87% employed at least one doctor on a local contract in 2024. And anybody and everybody knows what sort of system that is created. It's a two-tier system in the NHS. So I'm just going to flip back to the whole medical education side of things. Sorry, the workforce side of things. So fewer non-UK doctors finding employment, large increase in non-UK leavers. So in short, you do need some departments who depend heavily on locally employed doctors, international medical graduates. Lots of doctors are leaving, lots of doctors are picking up. So let's see how it all plays out. But that's sort of the interesting side of things. Now, there's a very important part here, which is important for everybody concerned. Non-UK graduates make up a growing proportion of doctors in training programs, especially in less competitive programs, right? So if you then have a look so if you go to this report and look down, you will see certain specialties having more international medical doctors simply because local doctors don't necessarily apply or are not interested or don't get the jobs, whatever be the case. So that in itself is also quite interesting. So the facts and figures, I think, are quite interesting going forward. So that's very much a summary. So just to basically go back again, a vast majority of doctors or workforce are LED or locally employed doctors. Vast majority of them are international medical graduates. Vast majority of them are in contracts which have got no progression or no rights, etc. And that seems to be all okay within the NHS for the time being for people who are coming across from other countries, uprooting, etc. So apart from that side of things, I think it's important to note that there's lesser doctors now coming. There are more doctors leaving of international medical graduates, opening the field completely to local graduates. So the question then becomes in a wider scale when you talk about workforce planning, if this country is this country's aim that they want to completely reduce their dependence on international medical doctors, and if the local graduates are not going to pick up the job, they're going to fill it up with other professionals who can do the role. And thereby the expansion, for example, of ACPs, ANPs, PAs, everything in those particular specialties. If that's the chosen direction, I think the important thing is for people to be honest with international medical doctors. And I think this is where it's quite important. When you go back to the GMC report, I don't know what's the word, bemused probably about the GMC raising the flag, international medical doctors coming here or coming less and not getting jobs and raising the alarm about how we need to do better planning in the workforce. But similarly, at the same time, the GMC also runs the PLAB exam, which is the doorway for the majority of people to come to this country from other countries. So I think the question back to the GMC would be whether they would consider relooking at how PLAB runs. And I think how much information is given to international medical doctors before they take the plunge from other countries. Now you could turn around and say, well, people are adult enough to make the decision, but sometimes if you don't necessarily have jobs in your own country, you will look abroad, similar to what local graduates do. That's why you've got people in Australia and other countries. So that's where it is. So the question really back to the GMC is whether they have read the GMC's own report and are going to look at the PLAB exam, their frequency, the fees, because there's no denying the fact that the money or the revenue that is generated from PLAB is something that also helps the GMC. So there is a degree of conflict of interest. So how does it all work out? We've got international medical doctors with the PLAB. You've got doctors who come to this country being told they're not welcome or they don't get not getting jobs. So what about the spend of the money that these guys are doing? So I think there's lots and lots of things, but it's good that the reports come out. The second part of the report of the GMC talks about headforce statistics, how many people have joined and left the workforce, the number of licensed doctors, and I think it's intriguing. So if you look at it about what's happened over the course of time. You can see how many people are specialists, how many people are GPs, all very good. Gender parity, excellent news. We do have now more women in, so the old days of when only men could become doctors, well and truly a thing of the past, which is good news. And you can see how much that's changed. I think on page 26, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing of showing how that has changed compared to the years going back right from 1866, which I think is fantastic with some really inspirational examples of how things have looked at. Number of doctors declaring a disability also has increased, and then there's a little sort of cursory box on physician associates and anesthesia associates who the GMC now regulates, but there isn't really much data on it because, well, many people are registered, or if they have registered, it's still voluntary till December 2026, and yeah, well, that's a little bit of a mess as to where things are, where I don't think AAs and PAs themselves know where they are due to the halfway in, halfway out approach of everybody else. I'm not going to rehearse. There's a Leng review came out, made a national recommendations. The government accepted it. NHS England sends a letter. Then they're like, okay, maybe we didn't do it, and then just keeping quiet. So nobody quite knows what's happening on that front. And PAs, A's, you've got courses shutting down. So it's a bit of a mess, but that's that part of the report. And then I was looking through the report trying to find out if there's going to be anything else about other protected characteristics, race and all that sort of stuff, but not much there. Maybe a sort of nod to the present times when nobody wants to talk about racism because it's so heavily dominated. It's better not to sort of flag things because who wants to show that doctors from, let's say, the black community don't get jobs or et cetera, I suppose. But I don't know, I'm probably being cynical. But that's where we are at the workforce report. And I think I just wanted to mention to everybody is you will all be, I think it's important to realize that international medical doctors don't just give the plab, come here and get jobs, right? The struggle is genuine, the struggle is real, and there's a lot of international medical doctors who will tell you how not simple it is to get a job here, how not easy it is to get a consultant job. And I have a position of privilege as well. So I would like to, take this opportunity to raise that of the rhetoric. And I think it's good in one way. I think that the General Medical Council has come out, done this report, raised the issues about people not coming, people leaving, and all this sort of stuff, right? And what you have right now is there needs to be a decision in this country as to what they want to do with the international medical doctors. Do they want them to come here and just do the work and prop the ward that nobody else wants to do? Is that why you want them here? Is that right to do? Or are you saying to them, look, our overall plan is that we'll see what posts we have for doctors, give it to the local graduates, and if that's not filled, we would like other healthcare professionals to step up and do their jobs. Because if that's the policy of this country, that is the policy of this country, right? And so you can't have it half-baked and leave the door open for international medical graduates with some sort of false hope, but actually drive them into posts that don't give them any progression. So that's my view, so to speak, about where things are at, what things need to change. Lots of things need to change. I mean, I'll tell you what, the NHS workforce, I mean, that's the king of all shambles, right? It's the grandmaster Jedi of all shambolic things. I've talked about the workforce plan, which doesn't exist. Nobody knows what's happening. Um, and it's been pushed back now to 2026. I always find it absolutely brilliant that we had a long-term workforce plan in what 2023, 4, which every college supported, everybody loved. It's all thought it was brilliant, and then it got absolutely peeled apart in the whole storm around PAs. And now there's a new one, and nobody knows where it is. And now it's been pushed back. May come in 26, may not come. So yeah, and we don't have any workforce leadership as far as I've seen the new executive team. I haven't noted anybody who's looking after workforce. Issues like racism is talked about, but not much else in bar of that. So I suppose the government really needs to decide, as everybody else, as to whether they want to tackle these issues or whether they just want to keep it under the radar and keep things going as they are. So I'll end this by saying I think there's a bit of a thank you to the General Medical Council to, as an international medical graduate, privilege to say, okay, good, you've come out and said these things. And ironically, I am one of the advisors to the GMC along with Professor Mala Rao about what international medical graduates should do. So my view would be, you need to relook at the frequency of the PLAB. We need to be very clear in our information that we're giving out to make people make an informed choice whether they should come to this country or take the exam. And I think that those work should be done in the base countries. I think a lot of us IMGs have a responsibility to be very open and frank about where things are, and certainly not use our privilege to exploit any of them. I think they are our generation next, for want of a better word, they are, who could have been our children in another life, and we shouldn't exploit them. So that's my view. But it's not for me to say to any international medical graduate that you shouldn't come to this country. I have made it here and I've done really well, and lots of luck, lots of fortune, lots of right place, right time, and here where I am. So I think this journey could be similar for you, but I didn't come here with the degree of hostility that's there in the system. And we certainly didn't come here when I did and was shoved into some posts which nobody else wanted. So very different times. And all I would say to international medical graduates is read all the GMC reports before you make the decision, talk to colleagues, and if you still want to make the plunge and take that sort of shot at it, then by all means think about it, whether you want to come to the NHS or not. So yeah, that's my view on this. But it's not the most happiest time, I must say, in this country, which seems so much divided, and people are so very open about saying that you don't need doctors from other countries, which is a bit of a shame because I can give you many, many examples of international medical graduate doctors changing lots of things in this country for the better. But there we go. So I'm going to end it here, but do have a look at the two reports I mentioned. One is the obviously General Medical Council Workforce Report. Make your own mind up about it. And secondly, the British Medical Journal investigation into locally employed doctors across the country, and have a think, have a consideration for your doctor colleagues who have come from other countries to work here or try and get a career here. And if you're in the group which would like them to leave, then think also about the impact of that going forwards, beyond your personal self as to how the system would work. That's all one can say. So, best of luck to everybody going forwards. And hey, listen, whoever picks up the cudgels of the workforce in the NHS, as I always say, make your plans accordingly, because on your head it will be as to how this country functions. Because without the doctors, I'm afraid you can't improve the healthcare outcomes, however much you try. So, thank you very much for, as ever, listening and subscribe, pass it around, whatever. So, thank you.